table. So I feel that this is one of the most talked about feature, and it is as simple and easy as it is talked about, and definitely very useful, right? So we will take this table as an example, and see what all we can do in the pivot table. Before we start with the looking at how does the pivot table work and what all it does, let's understand this table, and let's understand that what all analysis can we do. Well, it's just an hypothetical data. So we have the year. Okay, so we have the data for 3-4 years. We have the country and the industry, that is for say for example, oil and gas industry in India had 16 companies, and the total revenue of all the 16 companies was 2,44,7175 USD billion. Okay, so assume that all this data are in USD billion. Fine. So similarly, we have data for the rest of the years, for rest of the countries, and for rest of the industries. Okay, so just observe this data for a minute and think that what all analysis can we do with this data. Okay, so say for example, I would like to see um, the total of oil and gas industry. Okay, so for all the year, or maybe I would like to see a matrix of the revenue of India for each of this industry for all the year, or maybe I would like to see the total of oil and gas industry for all the countries. Okay, so these are some of the summarization which I might want to do with the data. Post that, I might also want to do some calculation on this data. uh, Beyond that, I would also maybe want to filter certain data or sort certain data, etc. Right, so all this analysis or classification or summary what we are thinking of is possible in one single Excel function or feature called pivot table. Okay, so without creating more anxiety or suspense, let's see how do we work on the pivot table. Okay, so okay, this is logically a wrong data. So if the number of companies are 0, then your revenue cannot be 1. Just nothing great. I'm just observe this data, so I changed it. Okay, anyway, let's continue. So I select any of the cell in this table. Okay, it's a huge table, so I can select any of the cell within the given table. I go to insert tab. Okay, and I click on pivot table. Okay, the keyboard shortcut for this is Alt DP. Okay, anyway. Yeah, so the moment I click on insert pivot table, I see this window. So the first requirement in the window is select a table or range. Since my cell was placed on one of the cell, it has selected this entire data table for me from cell A1 to E81. Okay, that's the range of my data. It says use an external data source. Since my data is within the sheet, I don't use this option. The second option it says me is either choose a new worksheet, so the pivot table will be created in a new worksheet, or you can select an existing worksheet and give it a location. That way you want to see the pivot table. Okay, any empty location will do, and you click on OK. The moment you click on OK, you see this field list appearing here, and you see a blank pivot table as of now. Fine. So let's understand the field list, and let's see how to play with the pivot table. So whatever column heading which we had, okay, so whatever column heading was there, you see that those column heading is now a part of my field list. Okay, just give me a moment. Okay, sorry, I forgot to switch off my cell, so that's what I was doing. Anyway, let's continue. Okay, I hope it's getting recorded. Yeah, okay, fine. So whatever column heading we have, we see this as one of the field lists. So now we can play around with this field list. So you can choose any of this field list as a column label. Okay, so if you, let's say you want to see the data country wise and let's say year wise. Okay, and you want to see the revenue as a field value. So you want to see the sum of revenue, right? And so you get a pivot table like this. Before we explore further, let us understand what is this table telling us. So this table is basically giving me the total of revenue in 2012 from China, from India, from Taiwan, and so on and so forth. And finally, it's giving me the grand total. Okay, of course, the grand total of the row and the column will be same. So it's giving you one single intersecting cell. Clear? So this is one example. Again, now I can play around with this data instead of country. If let's say I want to see the industry, so I want to see industry wise, year wise data. So I have the industry on my column label. So I see all the unique list of industry which is there in our data table, okay, and the unique list of year, and I get the sum of the revenue for all of this data. Okay, let's say if I want to create multiple column, okay, so along with the year I also want to see the data for the country, so you can do that. Okay, so now it's giving me the sum of revenue for automobile industry for China in the year 2012, right, and so on and so forth, right. So for each of the year, each of the country, I can see the sum of the industry, sum of the revenue industry wise. Clear? Okay, so that's another example. Okay, I can. Okay, now this is about column and the row label. So you know how to play around with it. Depending upon your data requirement, you can play around with this row label and the column label. You have to simply drag and drop the data, the field list in the row label or the column label, and similarly you can drag and drop it back. Okay, that's how easy it is. Okay, now what is this report filter? Okay, so this report filter is basically the filter at the superior level, at the overall level. So let's say I drop my year here. So the moment I do that, you see one more link is created here with the year and selecting all, right? So right now what is it is giving me is, it is giving me the total revenue for all the year. So let's say I want to see revenue only for 2012, so I can do that. So what I'll do is I will click on this drop down button and I will select the year which I want to see the data for, and I say okay. So if you want to select multiple year, you can do that as well. Okay, so let's keep it to 1 year at a time. So I say 2012 and I press OK. So you see now year 2012. So now this is the sum of the revenue industry wise, country wise for the given year, which is in your report filter. Again, your report filter can be anything. It's not any of the data field can be chosen as the report filter. Clear? So again, you can play around with that. Now let's explore it further. Right now what I'm getting is my sum of the revenue. Okay, so I have one more data list here, which is my number of companies. Okay, so let's say I want to see along with the revenue. Okay, I also want to see the number of companies. Okay, one thing you might have noticed that the moment I place my cursor out of the pivot table, this field area is gone, field list is gone. The moment I select any of the cell, the field list comes back again. Let's say if I close it, okay, I want to bring it back, all I have to go to option, click on the field list and I get it back. Okay, so don't worry about that. Okay, number of companies, again I will drag and drop it in the values. So you can see that now I'm getting my sum of revenues and I'm getting the sum of the number of companies as my column label. Clear? So I'm getting my two field lists, one is my revenue and the other is my number of companies for each of the industry. Clear? Similarly, I can create multiple data value here. Okay, fine. Okay, now let's say I don't want to see the sum. I want to see another mathematical function, like we saw in other examples also, that there are different multiple mathematical operations which we can see, not necessarily the sum. So what I'll do is I'll click on this arrow here. Okay, I'll go to value field settings. Okay, and I can select any of the functions here. So rather than sum, if I want to see the count or average or max or mean, whatever data I want, I can select that. Right? Okay, so this is another option you have in your pivot table. Clear? Okay, so before I move on to the formula part of the pivot table, let's understand. See, the moment I press my cursor out of the pivot table, you see the number of tabs are up to view, which is the normal standard tab. The moment I select the pivot table, I get two customized tabs for me. They customize to the pivot table tools, which is options and designs. Okay, so let's explore this tab. So in the option tab, we have field settings. You already know what is a field setting. Okay, you can sort the data. Okay, so how do we sort the data? Let's say if I want to sort my industry. Okay, so is it sort right now? Yeah, it's sorted A to Z. So let's say I want to say Z to A. So you see that the sorting has changed. You can also select your manual sorting or any other sorting which you want to do depending upon the given column, right? We have studied all the sorting function in the data function tab, so you can do the same thing here as well. You can go to more option and explore it further. Okay, okay, so okay, let's say if my original database, okay, this is my original database, let's say there's a change to it. Okay, so let's say now I have updated the data and the number of media companies are 2. Okay, but the moment you change it, your data table, your data